Are you a Black woman who is healing from overachieving? Me too. Let's get into it today. This conversation is about how we're healing, right? Different things that we're understanding about the roots of overachieving, ways that we can go forward and validate ourselves. I think that's very important. So, let's get into it. My name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, healer, educator, writer, sharing my authentic story, my lived experiences, the knowledge that I've gained from being a social worker and all the jobs that I've held throughout my life with y'all so that we can collectively heal. So if you have an experience that resonates with you, please feel free to drop it in the chat if you're live or drop it in the comments because we also learn from each other just by sharing our experiences, our resources with each other, things that we've been through and survived. And so I would love to hear that from you if you'd like to share. If you are also healing from being an overachiever, which I know is a lot of us, right? So, yeah, just some of the ways. And as you're joining, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, as always, so we can say hello to you. But yeah, happy Tuesday. So, one of the ways I'm healing from overachieving is by telling myself my own story. So, the things that I've achieved already in learning that survival mode, being in survival mode constantly impacts our memory. And I've actually been getting more into this with the book I have, Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy. And I posted about this recently, but the ways that we have been traumatized over generations, even thinking about it like that far back, which is actually not that far back in history, but how trauma really impacts our brains. And this is new. This is new, especially as Black people, right? Not even being considered as full human beings still today, which is why like mental health is still so new, right? We do have human brains. I mean, just to say that. And how do things like trauma and the things that we've experienced impact us over time? Hey, Alicia, good to see you. Happy October. Yes, I forgot to mention that. It is the first day of October. Yes, those of us who love fall. Yes, yes. And there is a fall season in Guadalajara, surprisingly. So the leaves are falling. Who else likes crunching leaves? I love like stepping on leaves. That's my favorite. That's my favorite. But yes. Yeah, so telling myself my own story, right? And understanding how survival mode, again, being in survival mode through college, through K to 12. I can't think of a time when I have not been in survival mode in the education system, which is kind of like indicative of the education system in the US. It's very much fast paced, learn as much as you can in a short time, like do all these things. Like it's a rush, it's a constant rush. Like what are we rushing towards? Like graduation, degrees, all these things, but it never seems to stop. Even when we get into the workplace, it's another rush. So it's like constantly on this treadmill of trying to like accomplish these accolades, get these achievements, get the gold star for everything that we're doing. And so having to sit with that I have been primed to be an overachiever throughout my entire life. And I'm going to get into like bullying and how that has impacted me. This society like creates holes in us, and then it like sells us back the solution is external validation through degrees, through certifications, through all these external things that are fleeting, right? And so we really have to like come back into ourselves. Who are we and how can we validate ourselves to heal from overachieving? I think that's really the thing. Hey, Benza. Yes, hello. Welcome. Welcome. Yes. So yeah, having been an A student for all of my life, the trauma of that, um, again, it looks good from the outside, right? Straight A student, you get all the claps and applause. On the inside, I know a lot of us are like deteriorating inside, getting these grades. And the whole thing about like the grading system in the education system, it's literally setting us up for this to be on this track of perpetual burnout, of seeking validation outside of ourselves. And really, we came here whole as we are. And so it's tapping into that and realizing how we've been conditioned for this for our entire lives. Again, graduating with honors from high school, from undergrad, it being in the honor society, working for a major bank right out of college, going to a top social work program for graduate school, going to another major bank, becoming an assistant vice president at 28. And then everything fell apart, right? So I was like on this constant treadmill of going really fast towards these goals and accomplishing them. Again, from the outside, it looks great. But from the inside, a lot of us are deteriorating from overachieving because we're seeking that validation outside of ourselves, and that's unsustainable. So just to say that, yeah. Sincerely, Latasha, yes, hello. I appreciate this conversation. It's been such a great shift for me and often lone journey. Yeah, yeah. It is lonely too. Being an overachiever is lonely. Thank you for pointing that out. It is. Yeah, because a lot of us are like inside our heads all the time, right? Again, criticizing ourselves for things that we didn't do perfectly. Perfection is an illusion. But all of these things like we're set up to seek. And then we feel bad about ourselves for being human. Having to heal from that is huge. So thank you for bringing that in. Yes, that's true. That's so true. Yeah. Yes. Hope, hey. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes. Yeah, so just telling myself my own story. What have I achieved already? What are the patterns that I can identify in my own life of being pushed to achieve, pushing myself to achieve, and what was I seeking this entire time? I think asking myself that question. Again, when things fell apart, that kind of gives you a look into the patterns that have existed throughout your life, right? What was this track that I was on? Who was pushing me to be on this track? Because I didn't hop on this myself, right? I was kind of like put into this by society. Again, a lot of us have been bullied. And so that has impacted our sense of self worth and self esteem, something that we have when we come here intrinsically. And then we're taught to seek it externally through these things that people like dangle above our heads like carrots, right? It's like coming back into who we are. That's one of the ways to heal. Yeah. So, again, what have you accomplished throughout your life? What have you been seeking? What achievements have you gained? Have they fulfilled you? I think that's a question to sit with too, because all these things that I achieved, again, they look great on paper. Did they fulfill me? Absolutely not, because I was still seeking the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I could never really sit with what I had already done. And part of healing has been to really take time to reflect, journal, tell myself, what have you already done? What have you already been through? What things, what goals have you already like marked off your list at 30, right? Because that's another thing, like, ooh, ageism tells us that we have to do all these things before 30, 40, like these arbitrary deadlines that we have in life. And so it's constantly pushing us to go at this pace that feels very rushed, right? Past the pace that feels natural to accomplish these things. If that's really what we want to do, because that's the other thing. Is this something that you really want to achieve, that you really want to go after, or is this something that you're doing to seek that external validation, the claps, the applause from other people? That's a question to ask yourself too. Yeah. Yes. So yes, realizing that we're set up for this intersectional oppression. Black women and girls have been on the front lines of integration, something that I've been sitting with. That feeling of self-sacrifice has stayed. And it's been a message that has been taught to us generation over generation. But realizing that we cannot outwork oppression, something that I wrote, I think it was earlier this year, might have been last year. But yeah, you can't outwork oppression. So just sitting with that. But we're taught that we can. We're taught that if we get more degrees, we get more certifications, we get another thing on our resume, then we'll be able to surmount, like overcome oppression. But we know that's not the case. So many of us have shared our stories. It's like being in these environments and being subjected to hostility, abuse, all of these things that our ancestors have experienced over generation. And getting a degree and certification does not change that. And sometimes that can be a harsh realization to sit with, but it's also healing, right? Because sometimes we'll turn this in on ourselves. Something's wrong with me. I need another thing to fill this hole that society has created within me. Versus realizing you've always been enough, you were already enough, right? And sitting with that realization, that's really been healing. Yeah. Hey, Marissa, good to see you. Good to see you. Sincerely, Tasha says yes. Ended up, yes. Overworked, underpaid, and burned out. Ooh, okay, that resonates deeply. Yes, burned out before 30. After overachieving, now embracing a slower life for my health, no matter others' perception and comments. Thank you for sharing this. Yes, that's exactly what happened to me. Yes, overworked, underpaid, burned out before 30. Again, on this track, in an ageist society, you have to accomplish all these things before 30. If not, it doesn't count, right? That's the message that we're taught. And just realizing how much of my 20s have just been me in survival mode. From thing to thing, constantly trying to seek validation, not really checking in with myself. Is this something that I actually believe in, that I want to do? And yeah, being in positions that were, again, from the outside, right? Achieving these titles, these status symbols, like that's cool. But inside, a lot of us are deteriorating from the stress of pushing ourselves past our body's natural point of exhaustion to seek these things constantly because there's no end point. That's something that has been healing for me too, realizing that if you don't opt out, there will never be an end point to the pressure that is placed on you in these environments by people around us sometimes to constantly achieve, seek things outside of ourselves. And so we have to place those limits for ourselves. Like, no, I'm not opting into this game that's going to destroy me. Mm-hmm. That's so true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's sad. And just to point that out, it's like, it's a grief process. It really is. To realize, again, all the things, just going through my life story, all the things that I've accomplished and achieved, it still led me to the point of being in a toxic work environment. It's like, really? So this thing that I was taught that these things would like save me from experiencing toxicity, that's false. That's a lie. And often for Black women, it like turns the dial up on the amount of vitriol that we experience when we do get additional certifications and degrees. So just being like transparent about that, that has been healing, right? It's kind of the opposite what we're told. And that can be confusing too. Yeah. Danny. Yes. Hey, a girl healing from survival mode right here. Yes. Me too. Me too. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the ways I'm healing, re-embodiment, understanding the health consequences of overworking, looking to people who have already experienced what I've been through, who are older than me, right? Hearing their stories and actually heeding their advice. Realizing that I've always had migraines, right? Stomach issues, back and hip pain, anxiety, depression, tremors from the level of pressure that I put on myself in all these environments throughout my life, and actively taking a different route. Kind of like the visualization I talked about before, like the fork in the road. You know the route. If you take the path of overachieving, you know what that's going to bring because you've experienced it. Can you take the other route of like giving yourself grace in time and opting out of these systems that tell us that our worth exists outside of us and really sitting with your intrinsic value? Can you take that route instead? That visualization has been helpful for me. Benta says, working in nonprofits, I get lots of praise. Ooh. I get lots of praise for pushing past my boundaries, always working for others and barely keeping it together. I was definitely sad and sick before 30. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yep. The rewards that we get for pushing past these points where our body's like, I can't work anymore. Right. But it's like dangling something like, well, keep pushing yourself. You get this award, you get this like recognition. Sometimes we don't even get that. Right. That can be a false promise too. And that's also brings grief. So yeah, sad and sick before 30. Thank you. Yeah. And I'm sorry you experienced that. I was in the same boat. Sad and sick before 30. Yeah. Yeah. And just thinking about like our 20s, right? Our 20s are presented to us as like the best time of our lives for some reason. My 20s were extremely traumatic for a variety of reasons. And part of that was me pushing myself to overachieve constantly with like the societal messages that I had internalized throughout my life from childhood, right? Continuing these patterns, but it felt like they like got even more magnified, like they exacerbated in my 20s. And I was going even harder towards these goals, like, and not giving myself time and space to rest and be a human, right? Because this is not a human pace that a lot of us are going at. This is a robot pace. And so having to sit with that and like taking time to breathe, one of the ways that re-embodiment has helped me heal, still a process of just reminding myself to breathe. Because when you're constantly pushing yourself to this level, breath often gets like thrown to the side because it becomes like you're hyper focused on these goals, these artificial goals outside of yourself. And that doesn't leave space for you to check in with, how is this actively affecting me? How is this impacting my body? What health issues am I noticing pop up? Because we're just on like track to goal after goal after goal after goal. It's like, whoa. Actively opting out of that conditioning. And that can take time, I think. But the first step is even being aware that you're in that you're in that survival mode, that you're in that overachieving mode, and realizing something else exists. I think a lot of us don't even know that something else exists outside of that, but it does. It does. Oh, I love that. Yes. And thank y'all for being here. I appreciate you. Yes. Yes. Danny says, how appropriate to release over. Come on, Danny. Overachieving in this fall autumn season. I am so proud of us for taking these steps towards freedom and ease. Let's get free together. Ah, yes. That's true. That's true. Yeah. Releasing overachieving, right? Which as an entrepreneur, that has been a difficult thing to unlearn. And I think the narrative is if you leave 9 to 5 corporate world, all of your problems will be magically solved. And that's not true. Entrepreneurship has brought out the wounds that I've had throughout childhood in such a major way and forced me to really grapple with overachieving, pushing myself past the brink, not giving myself time to rest because you're on your own schedule. And so now you can work 24/7, right? And it's really actively having to put those boundaries in place. No, I'm not continuing this pattern. There's a reason that I opted out of the system that I was in to do stuff a different way. And I have the power to do that. I'm not going to run myself into the ground. Not doing that. So, yes, yes. Yeah. Marissa says, I'm starting to believe the overachieving is a distraction from sharing our inherent intuitive knowledge. Like, nope, don't share your knowledge without 5 sources and 10 degrees. Marissa, yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. A distraction from sharing our inherent intuitive knowledge. The way that just hit my soul. Yes, that's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a question to ask, like, who does this benefit? Because it doesn't benefit us being overachievers. Our bodies are breaking down a lot from the inside. Again, from the outside, everything looks great. You have the GPA, you have the accolades, you have the awards, you have the straight A's, you have the honors society that you're in. Everything looks great, but from the inside, we're deteriorating. And so that begs the question, like, who does this benefit? Yeah, because we're disconnected from our intuitive knowledge when we're in survival mode. When we're just goal after goal after goal, it's like that's not how spirit communicates on this very fast paced track that we're on. We need time to actually receive messages to like go a different route that we're being led to. Right. And when we're in this mode of overachieving, our focus becomes on goals, external validation, versus taking time to really, like you said, tap into your intuitive knowledge that we all come here with. And the education system primes us for this, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. is so true. Danny said I had some friendly reminders today that it's okay to pause and slow down. Yeah. We can always take a break from doing the work. It is enough to exist as we are. We are enough as we are right now. Oh, I love that. Yeah. It's okay to pause and slow down. Yeah. We can always take a break from doing the work. Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing, being hyper focused on the mission, which I know what's the case for me, and having to remind myself I have to put myself first, right? For the rest of my life, I'm in charge of taking care of myself 100% of the time. So I must come first in my life. But a lot of us are told that we're kind of like a side thing in our life. And it's like the bigger thing is the mission. Why are we here to fulfill a mission? That doesn't make any sense to me. If not us, right? We're not in our lives for us. We're not here on earth for us to evolve our spirits. We're just here to, again, serve a purpose, sacrifice ourselves, servitude. And who does that messaging benefit when we are taught that servitude is the reason why we're here? Yeah. Yeah. Hope, yes. Overachieving to benefit people that dislike us, 100%. 100%, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're dangling the awards, the carrots, right? Come on, like, get another goal, get it. They don't even like us. They don't even like us. And that does a number on our self esteem, right? That really does a number on our self esteem. Chasing the approval of our oppressors constantly. And it's not something that you can ever achieve because they'll always move the goalpost, right? The goal is to keep you chasing something that they have. And so once you recognize that, it's so much easier to opt out. Like, no, I'm not participating in that because I recognize the game that's being played and it's going to result in my destruction. So sitting with that truth. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Danny. Yes, please hit the like button, y'all. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. Yep. That was a word, Marissa. That was a word. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, who does this benefit is such an important question. I hope all of us that have good intentions start to be selfish. Yes, because if it serves ourselves, that serves the collective in the long run. 100%. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I so agree. I hope all of us that have good intentions start to become selfish. I feel like I need to write that down. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. That's powerful. Because for those of us who are taught that our worth exists in other people's hands, that we have to seek it, be in servitude, be in service, bow down to get a piece of worth. It's like when we come here worthy already, how would that change if we kind of shift the dynamics, validate ourselves internally, be selfish, care for ourselves, radical self care? How will that allow us to opt out of something like overachieving, which does not serve us, does not benefit us? I love that question. Yeah. Another way I'm healing, embracing self sovereignty. Self sovereignty means the ability to choose the direction of one's own life and being the exclusive authority over one's own body and mind, right? So to choose the direction of your life and being the exclusive authority over your body and your mind. A lot of us are told that authority exists outside of us, that we're not the authority of our lives, that we have to seek permission. We have to ask people, is this okay to do? We have the authority to grant ourselves that. We come here with that. And it is only through being within systems of oppression that try to like disintegrate that, which we come here with, that tell us that we have to seek authority outside of ourselves. approval, stamps, degrees, right? That falls in line with the same thing that we're taught to seek externally. These external things of validation, that if we turn them inwards, what power could we take back from that? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Binta. I appreciate that. This is right on time. So much truth and warmth. Oh, thank you in this space. Oh, yes, that is always my goal. So thank you. Thank you. Yes, other ways I'm healing. Knowing I came here whole, and the society try to poke holes in me to sell me back my worth through external validation, through degrees, through honor societies, straight A's, GPAs, all of these things. It's all the same thing. And once you recognize that too, that's healing and that's freeing. It's all the same thing. It shows up in different ways, but it's the same thing that we're being sold. Approval, validation, affirmation outside of ourselves, right? And it often results in our harm within these spaces, within these institutions, pushing ourselves past the brink of exhaustion to try to get this. And then sometimes we don't even get it. But now we can't take back the harm that we've done to our bodies. We can heal, that's always possible, but we can't go back to the time before we entered into these spaces and they harmed us. And that can be a grief process again as well, to recognize that. Yeah, I agree. Yes. Thank you for adding and sharing your warmth as well. Yes, Benta. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, thank you. Come on, Marissa. Yes to self sovereignty. Yes. I love it. I love it. Yeah, and just the power of that self sovereignty, especially again, as Black women, the intersectional oppression that we experience, intersectionality coined by Kimberly Crenshaw, but realizing that if we took back power over ourselves, authority over ourselves, no one else has the ability to say yes or no, approve, deny. They no longer have that power. And so that exists within us. And how can that really transform society? I love it. Yes. So, yes, please know that you came here whole if you are healing from overachieving. You came here whole. The society tried to disintegrate your self esteem and then sell you back external validation, but you have the power to now opt out of that. Right? You don't have to continue on that track. Now that you're aware of these patterns that exist, you can do that for yourself. You can validate yourself. Right? And if there is a degree or something that you want to seek, does it come from within? Something that you really want to do, please pursue that. But if it's something that you're doing, seeking that external approval, self-esteem, self-worth, things that should be only generated internally for them to be permanent, that's a question to ask yourself. Yeah. Yeah, how I'm healing. I feel like I need to take a breath. Yeah, changing my internal narrative, removing other people's voices from my mind and reclaiming my own. So these voices that are telling us to push past when our bodies are telling us to stop, recognizing that that is not our voice. That's not our voice. We don't come here pushing ourselves past the point of exhaustion. Right? Kids know when they need time to rest. And even learning from my dog, right? Learning from people outside of human beings. When he's tired, he doesn't walk anymore. He sits down. And I had to pick him up. That's a whole other story. But it's like he knows when it's his limit, right? And so how are we socialized to push past our limit? And who told us that? Who told us that? Another way of healing, realizing I don't have to earn my worth. You don't have to earn your worth. You're already worthy. And I wrote about this on my Substack blog, which is linked in the description section. But looking at the trees, do trees question their worth? That's a question I had when I was in the park the other day. Do trees question their worth? Or do they come here knowing that they're worthy? Do they sprout out of the ground, taking up space? And what can we learn from the trees? Again, outside of human beings and the limitations that we have on our understanding of the world, can we look to other things for knowledge and ways to go forward and heal? So yes, shout out to the tree lovers out there. Yeah. Yeah, Kofi. Yes, the baby. Yes. He will sit down. He will sit down. And so that has been an important lesson for me. Like, I used to do that too, right? It's reflected back to me. I used to do that. When I was tired of like playing outside, I would come inside. And somewhere along the way, I told myself, okay, I have to push myself past the point of knowing that I need to stop working, of knowing it's time to rest, somewhere along the way. And I think that might have been in middle school. Middle school, was traumatizing. But that was where I really learned to push myself past that point and continue overachieving. So when was that point for you? That's a question to journal about, maybe. Ask yourself, when was the point that you started overachieving and why was that? Do you remember the circumstances? Yeah. They do. Trees and nature have so much to teach us. They do. They really do. Yeah. So how can we learn from other things, other living things, beings, about how to stop overachieving and take back your power? Question to ponder on. Yeah. Yeah. Hello, Insanity Salem, the spiritual Lisa Diva. Yes, I love that, to get my family's approval. Yeah. 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 Thank you for that. Yeah. And that's real. That is real. Yeah, a lot of us will overachieve seeking that, right? It can be from institutions, from teachers, family members, people who are in positions of authority, seeking that. And part of healing has been realizing I have an anxious attachment style too. So I'm already like primed to seek this, right? Having anxiety around like what I bring naturally, and then seeking that outside. So healing from childhood trauma has been a way to heal from overachieving too. What attachment style do you have? Could that be priming you to now enter into something where you're seeking validation externally? You're seeking safety, approval, these things that should have been provided to you during those formative years of your life. Is your attachment style now priming you for overachieving? That's a question to ask. Yeah. And thank you for that. Yes, family approval is very real. Yes. So, those of us who have been bullied, bullying really sets us up to seek academic achievements, validation through academic means, something I've been sitting with. Again, having started in middle school, overachieving, actually, I can remember it before then because I was bullied before then. But the pathway that I saw to getting people to like me, that's the truth, is through academic achievements, of getting praise, of getting approval. And so I like condition myself to be a straight A student, pushing myself constantly, higher and higher GPAs, the awards, all of these things. And so living in a society that really is, but how is it setting us up? Hopefully I'm back. Hopefully I'm back. I'll give it a second. But yeah, how is this setting us up? Being bullied. Being bullied, right? Having people talk about us, make fun of us for things that we can't change. And so we're seeking that, like, belonging. That's the word that's coming up. We're seeking belonging through academic achievements often. That was the case for me. And so now having to literally rewire my brain that those instances that I experienced throughout my life of childhood bullying, that did not mean anything about me. And I can now take back my power as an adult. And that's healing. Because those wounds can open us up for not just overachieving, but toxic workplaces, toxic situations, those wounds that were made very early on in our lives that told us that we weren't enough. And we had to do extra. We had to go above and beyond to belong, to get what we should have been afforded just by being us. Those wounds can set us up. And so having that awareness of the wounds that you have can be huge in healing. Yeah. I know. Learning from the trees. Learning from the trees. I love it. Yeah. 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 Yes. Marissa says the trees teach me so much. I found my tree community, y'all. I thought it was just me for all this time. Thank y'all. Yes. There is a meditation I do when I don't have answers. I sit and wonder, how would I handle the situation if I were a tree? And I truly imagine I am a tree. Answers come. That's beautiful. It is. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Marissa, that's beautiful. I'm writing down. I sit and wonder, how would I handle this situation if I were a tree? That's life changing. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Okay. We out here. We out here. Who else loves trees? Yeah. Yeah, they can teach us so much. They really can. They really can. Let's see what else. Returning to childhood me to heal from overachieving. And I wrote about this in my book, Cocoon. We're really sitting with the quote, I can go back and retrieve parts of myself that I lost along the way. There's a lot of parts of myself that I lost throughout my life due to overachieving, due to putting these goals, these really lofty goals that I did accomplish that were outside of myself that weren't really aligned with who I am. Right? And it caused me to have to like cut off parts of myself, hide parts of myself, like, and really realizing that all of you is required in this healing journey. All of you. No part left behind, right? All of these parts of yourself are required to heal from what you experienced, from things like overachieving, seeking external validation. Yeah. Okay. Come on. Amanda, hello, welcome. Yes, me. Okay. We love trees. That has been established. Yes. And I love it so much. Thank y'all. Yes. Marissa says, thanks y'all for making space for the practice I do in secret because I think, no, they may be strange. Y'all my people for real. Yes. Yes, we are. And no, it's not strange. That's life changing. Really, to envision yourself as a tree, like what would a tree do? Because we can be limited by human understandings of the world, of this planet, of our position, right? What this whole like life experience is about. What if you envision yourself as a tree? I love it. I love it. Yes. Yeah. So, how can you return to childhood you? And shout out to Alicia. So many videos on her channel of childhood, right? Returning to your childhood self. Who were you? The things that you like to do, the things that you were interested in, right? The things that were like kind of sparkly. Can you return back to those things? And speaking of that, I think I mentioned this on Rashidat's live last week, but yes, y'all can see that. Play-Doh. I love Play-Doh. And so, how can you pick back up childhood activities? I just saw this in the grocery store, y'all, and I had to pick it up. But things that you used to do throughout childhood that may seem silly, and I have an idea to do a live on this too, about why it's hard to connect with our childhood selves. Part of the reason is because it's like taught to us as it's silly. There's like a culture of bullying, making fun of people for doing stuff that brought them joy in childhood, when really that's the essence of who we are. That's what brings the sparkle back to life. And so, how can you pick up the things that you used to do before you began overachieving? Because there was a period before you began overachieving. I think that's important to healing too, realizing that you did not always do this. There was a point before in your life, before you were an overachiever, when you knew your boundaries, when you knew the point to stop, when you were not seeking external approval. Can you go back to that version of yourself because it still exists within you? By coming back into your childhood activities that brought you joy. Like Play-Doh. Yes. Yes, Yvette, yes. And happy belated birthday. It was Yvette's birthday yesterday. Yes. Hey fam, wait, Play-Doh, I want some. What's happening? Who else likes Play-Doh? Don't tell me. Okay. We like trees and we like Play-Doh. Yes. Yeah, we're talking about reclaiming childhood activities that brought us joy, to heal from overachieving, seeking external validation, coming back into the things that we really like to do, like play with Play-Doh. So, yeah. And just a question to sit with. What activities did you like doing as a child? And can you pick those back up without feeling like it's silly, without feeling like, again, this language around reconnecting with our childhood selves? And also ask yourself, like, who does that benefit to? That question is important there too. Who does it benefit when we are told not to connect with our childhood selves, when we're cut off at this artificial age of 18 and we're supposed to be like adults, very serious, rigid? Who does that benefit? Not us. And yeah, so I have an idea to do a different live on this because it's a setup. I've had some thoughts about the deeper reasons behind why we're disconnected from our childhood selves, and how oppression really creates that situation for us to feel like we're a completely different person than we were before we were 18. It's really weird. And sometimes it's hard to reclaim those memories that you had because you're expected to just be like in adult mode all the time. What is adult? What is childhood and what is adulthood? Made up concepts. But yeah. Yay, Marissa says yes. I love the Play-Doh color you picked. So you. Okay. Yes, my favorite color. My favorite color. Yes. Play-Doh. Play-Doh. Yes. Yvette says yes. I loved and still do coloring. Adds to list. Thank you. Yes. I adultified it. I adultified it and purchased coloring pencils, but I'm all in. I love coloring pencils too. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna have to get a coloring book. That's so funny. I used to do that on the plane when I first started flying because I have so much anxiety flying. I would bring a coloring book. That just reminded me of that. I haven't thought about that in a while. But yeah. Yeah, I love it. Thank you. Yes, coloring. Okay, so we have coloring, we have Play-Doh, and we have trees to healing from overachieving. And I love it. I love it. Marissa says, yes, it's okay if it feels silly. People literally make so much money being silly, but we are taught that type of fun life is a privilege. Yes. Yes to this. That we're not allowed to have fun. Why? Because we're socialized to be workers. And that's it. That's why we're on earth. To uphold the capitalist machine with the roots in enslavement. That's how we're socialized. And so, how can you resist that? By saying, no, I'm actually inviting back in things that bring me fun because that's part of life. That's why I'm here, to have fun. And I'm not doing that, right? I'm not assisting in my own oppression to be socialized as a worker, to be thought of as less than a human being. No, rejected. Absolutely not. Yes. Yeah. Alicia says yes. Exactly. Yes. 18 is some arbitrary number. My child self is still who I am. It doesn't just magically disappear at 18. Yeah. Yep. That part. It doesn't. It doesn't. No. Yes to coloring. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. You have to earn fun. Yeah, that's what it's taught to us. That you do. You have to earn it. And that leads us again to overachieving. Because I know throughout school, it's like if you accomplish this, if you got this accolade, then you could get this reward. Then you could get this thing that brings you joy. Sometimes it would be taken away from you if you didn't get that. And so what does that set us up to do to ourselves in adulthood? Restricting access to the things that bring us joy. Now we do that to ourselves. It's a setup. It's a setup. Yes, another way I'm healing, doing what feels good, and that being it. Asking myself, does this feel good? When you notice that you're overachieving, when you're pushing yourself past the point of exhaustion, when you're doing this extra assignment, this extra work, you're working overtime. And again, a lot of these things are rewarded in the workplace. So I have to mention that. And they're often required in a lot of our jobs, right? Which also sets us up. But asking yourself, does this feel good to me? And if not, releasing it. Releasing it. If I push myself to write this thing past the point when I know that I need to rest, does this feel good? And again, this is kind of revolutionary too, even thinking about like the way that we're socialized as workers, not being able to check in with ourselves. Even thinking like throughout generations, our ancestors not being able to check in with themselves. Does this feel good? And so how is this healing generations to now take that back and be like, I'm actually going towards what feels good? It's reclaiming your humanity from oppressive systems. It's actually that deep. It actually is that deep. Yeah. Bars. Bars. Yeah. Hey, Kyoka. Yes. Hey, Marissa. It's a scheme that Todd set up to come to us with the BS. Yes. Yes. Yeah. 100%. 100%. Yes. Yeah. Does this feel good? What a beautiful question. Yeah. And it being as simple as that. Because sometimes like healing from overachieving can feel like this huge thing. I don't know how to do it, so I'm just going to keep overachieving. It's actually just like asking yourself simple questions. Can I take a different route? Do I know the roots of this? Who does this benefit? Does this feel good? It's a series of like simple questions that you reflect back to yourself. And that's why self-awareness is so important to healing. Something that I lay out in my workbook, my digital workbook, which I'll link here. But yes, how can you begin to heal from overachieving? Can you tap into spirit to guide you? Something that has been healing to me. And shout out to Coach Yolanda on YouTube, asking this question during her live, I think it was 3 weeks ago. Are you relying on your human mind or are you tapping into spirit? If you continue to just rely on your human mind, you will become exhausted. You will be depleted. You will be drained. Can you tap back into spirit for a source of abundant energy, understanding, motivation? That's the question I've had to ask myself. Am I leaning too much into my human mind? Can I tap back into spirit? Can I? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon. Yes. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yes, y'all, please hit the like button. Appreciate it. Oh, okay, collabs. Come on. I love it. I love it. Yes. Marissa says the quiet quitting was really healing for me. Yeah. I now do the bare minimum in many areas of my life, and it's enough, more than enough often. Thank you, Marissa. Yes. Yes. Can you do the bare minimum? That's another question to ask yourself. Instead of overachieving, instead of pushing myself to get A, B, C externally, can I do the bare minimum? Can I do just enough to get by? And that doesn't mean anything about my worth. And that's like a power tool. When you've now validated yourself internally, now you can do the bare minimum and not feel like you're failing anyone, you're less than other people, because you have that permanent sense of validation within yourself that no one can touch. And that's why the society at every turn tries to take that from us. It really does. From the time when we don't even know what's going on, we don't have the language, we have the feeling. We have the feeling that something is not right with the way that, right? Every time I enter into these environments, they're trying to like break me down a little bit each time. I know that I had that understanding, I had the feeling, but I didn't have the vocabulary for it. But now as adults, we do know what's happening. And so we can actively opt out. No longer am I seeking my worth through this institution, through this title, through this degree. I came here worthy. I will always be worthy, period. Yes. Yeah. Staying in tune with what feels good helps weed out the things not serving you. Agree, Kyoka? Yes, absolutely. That's important. When you're in tune with what feels good, again, like pleasure activism, a book by Adrienne Marie Brown that I talked about on my channel, was it earlier this year? I know it was around, I did an event on Valentine's Day, prioritizing our pleasure for self-preservation. How can that be a way, right? Seeking joy, seeking what feels good, pleasure, to opt out of oppressive systems that are continuing to destroy us when you go after what feels good. And it can be that simple. Then the things that don't feel good start to fall off. You start to give less energy to them. And you're turning your focus back towards yourself, which is where it should be. Yes. Another way I'm healing from poverty shame. This is something I've really been sitting with. Again, as a first generation in my family to not have experienced poverty directly, but hearing the trauma that people have experienced throughout their lives. And again, as a sensitive person, I take that on heavy. And so carrying that around, realizing that I was carrying, still healing from it, the shame of people who came before me living in poverty. And feeling like I have to overwork and overperform to now distance myself. When really that's wrong, right? Because that's placing blame on individuals for a systemic failure, which is poverty. And so having to unlearn that, right? Because we're told that individual action can cure systemic problems. It takes the blame off of the people who continue to perpetuate, uphold oppressive systems when we're told that it's an individual problem that can be fixed, that we have to turn within ourselves, we have to take on shame. Again, this all benefits the systems that we live in. And so recognizing that and understanding you do not have to overachieve, push yourself to try to get away from this shame that should never have been there in the first place. That was never yours to carry. This is the shame of a society, poverty is. When people don't have the resources that they need to live. That's the failure of a society, not an individual. So sitting with that has been healing for me, yeah. And again, realizing you cannot outwork oppression. No matter how hard you try, how much you overachieve, how much you push yourself past the brink, your body will pay the cost, and the oppressive systems will still be there. Because it's not through individual action, right? It's through collective action that we dismantle these systems, but it's not through individual action that you can somehow outskirt oppression. Yeah. Yes, Marissa says, yes, poverty is a shame of a failed society. It is. It is. Poverty is a shame of a failed society. And all the messages that we're taught, again, to turn inwards, that leads to shame, that leads to things like depression, when it's really a societal failure that's being taught as an individual problem. And when we have that shame, that's another idea I had for a live, like the impact of shame. When we have that shame, it like prevents us from turning our anger where it should be. First of all, it suppresses our natural feelings of anger, and we turn inward. We internalize that as shame, depression, versus it being a natural, angry reaction to societal failures. And so if you're pushing yourself to overachieve, to try to distance yourself from the shame of poverty, whether it be your shame or like generational shame that you carry, can you unlearn that? Can you heal from that? And realize that it was never an individual issue. It was never an individual failing. It's a societal, systemic, structural failing that you're trying to survive, that your family was trying to survive. So yeah. Hope says you don't have to push yourself to be valued. You are enough because you are. Beautiful, beautiful, yes. You don't have to push yourself to be valued. You are enough because you are. Thank you for that affirmation, yes. That's true. Yeah. Marissa says doing only the parts that feel good for you also leaves room for community to help in the ways that feel good to them. Ooh, I love that. Yes. Yeah, and viewing ourselves as part of a collective, which again, living in Western societies, the US, it being like hyper focused on individualism. Can you view yourself as a collective? Can other people step in? And not all of us have that, so want to like say that too, but like can other people step in if they can to do things that feel good to them versus you feeling like you have to do everything? That's a question to ask. Thank you. Yeah. Mo is Queendom says yes. And validate our childhood selves with that new language vocabulary. 100%. Yep. 100%. Yep. And I want to see real quick if I could select this workbook to show y'all. Let me see. Here we go. Yeah, so this is the workbook that I created, 5 steps to begin healing from childhood trauma. And this brought up the first part of awareness. So awareness is huge when you begin healing from overachieving. Can you bring yourself to the awareness that you're even doing it? Because a lot of us will not even realize that we're operating in this pattern. And part of that is body awareness, re-embodiment. Can you tap into your body's natural signals of telling you to stop, slow down, not treating yourself like a machine, even though we're socialized as machines? Shout out to Trisha Hersey of the Nap Ministry. But that doesn't mean that you have to treat yourself like a machine. That's where your power comes into play within oppressive systems. Refusing to engage in that, refusing to deteriorate your own body. It's taking your power back. So yes, the first step that I laid out in this workbook is awareness. If you are healing from, again, childhood bullying, childhood trauma, and anxious attachment style like I am, this workbook may be helpful to walk you through. And I included like question prompts and stuff like that if you're on this journey of telling yourself your own story, walking yourself back through the things that you've experienced throughout your life to heal, to become aware of the wounds that you have, to now go in a different direction. So yes. Yeah, and this is my workbook, y'all. I realize I never showed this. Trouble with self-promotion. That's a different live, but yes. This is my workbook. Okay. How I'm healing. Realizing it's all a setup. Realizing all of this is a setup. Overachieving. Pushing ourselves. Not viewing ourselves as fully human because other people have decided that we're not human somehow. That we're 3/5 of a person. Telling myself that I'm fully human. I need to rest, right? These basic human things that we have to do. I need time to process. I'm a sensitive person. Again, when you are socialized to be a machine, there's not really space to be sensitive because you're expected to just adhere to the commands that the society tells you to do, to overwork yourself, to produce. That's the message that we're taught why we're here, to produce. This earthly experience that was not easy, it's not easy to come into this world, no matter how you got here. You're telling me that the reason why we're here is just to work? That doesn't resonate. That doesn't resonate. Again, when you think about like expanding this outside of the human experience too, are other living beings here to work? Or are they here to just exist? And so why can't that be the case for us too? Questions to sit with. Yeah, Danny, hey, welcome. Welcome. Always good to see you. Marissa says, thank you for sharing the workbook in this way because I don't think I fully, oh, wow. Thank you for that feedback. I don't think I fully understood how incredible of a resource this is. Marissa, thank you for that feedback. Because, like, when I tell y'all self promotion, it is like so difficult for me. This helps me to be able to be like, okay, I can do it. So I appreciate the affirmation. Thank you. Yeah. Learning from other Black women, writers, thinkers, creators, like y'all in the chat, learning that a lot of us are healing from overachieving. And if a lot of us have the same experience, that means that there's a pattern at play. There's a system that's working behind the scenes. And so understanding that there is so much knowledge to be gained from going back and understanding the patterns that people have already picked up so we don't have to start from scratch. Reading the work of Black women writers, intellectuals throughout history. Things that people have already realized that I can now integrate into my own life, those understandings. Because again, oppression works, and I have a video for this idea for this as well. Memory. Oppression works to steal our memory. And so how can we tap into the realizations that people have already had during their earthly experience as we're navigating this for the first time? How can we tap into that knowledge, understanding of the world, our position in it, our understanding of our inherent worth, not dependent on external validation, affirmation, approval, degree, but really sitting with, we came here worthy. Why else would we be here? That doesn't make sense. Why else would we be here if we were not already worthy? And so these are questions to ask yourself, again, if you're healing from overachieving. Oh, yes. Hello, Soul Inspired. Yes, Black excellence is still put on a pedestal right now. Agreed. Yes. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Our ancestors were told they had to be 10 times better than them. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's important, that the context that we're operating in as we're healing from being overachievers. Why did we receive these messages in the first place? What were we told that we would gain from overachieving? And has that been true? And what is the harm that has been done to us in the process of achieving these things outside of ourselves? Because like I talked about in my video, the cost of access. What's the cost of access? The cost to our bodies is not small. To our minds, to our spirits, it's not small. And so is it worth it? Is it worth it to overachieve? Have the benefits, what we've gained, been worth the cost of to our bodies, to our health, our mental health, physical health, spiritual health, our intuition, as Marissa pointed out, right? Our intuition is impacted when we are hyper focused on goal after goal after goal, meeting these metrics, producing. Our intuition is sometimes compromised. We don't know how to tap back in because it requires rest to be able to heed what your intuition is telling you. And again, these systems are set up for us not to be able to rest. But there was also a point before these systems like capitalism existed that we can go back to and learn from that knowledge as well. That reminds me of I had to get my book recommendation. Yes, The Healing Wisdom of Africa. y'all can see it without the blur. Oh my God, that reminds me of YouTubers back in the day. Everybody put their hand up. But yes, The Healing Wisdom of Africa by Malidoma Patrice Some. Again, regaining the knowledge that we have had ancestrally, realizing that if you are drawn to this, perhaps you have been chosen to now reclaim the knowledge that exists in your lineage about how things function before these systems were even created. Before we were pushed to be an overachiever, before that concept even existed, we were operating in alignment with the earth. And it is only in recent history that we have been out of alignment. And that causes us to think that overachieving, striving, seeking external validation outside of ourselves, seeking the approval of people who do not have authority over us, but say that they do, and use different means to reinforce that belief, how does that create conditions to become an overachiever? And how can you heal from that? By reclaiming the knowledge that exists inside you. So yeah, that got deep, y'all. That got deep, but yes. Oh, thank you. Yes, I love that book too. Shout out to Coach Yolanda again, who brought me to that book. It's like 2 years ago at this point. Yeah. Soul Inspired says, every time I see local news and see a Black woman doing the most for some stressful situations in the community, I wish I could hug her. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, because again, we're often set up to be in these roles in society and not check in with how is this impacting me, affecting me, not even like viewing yourself as a part of your life sometimes. Viewing your life as existing outside of you, and you're just kind of like a part that doesn't even really matter in your own life. And that's harmful. That's harmful when I think the visualization I used before, when your arrow is constantly pointed out towards other people and not towards yourself, how is this impacting me? Start there. You're putting all of your energy into other people, exhausting yourself, seeking validation, seeking all these things. And how is this society setting us up to do this? Not taking on blame on ourselves for being in this pattern, but how are we set up? And how can we now tap into our power and agency to opt out? Because it's not sustainable. We've seen it over generations. The consequences, we've seen it not be sustainable. And so can we now take a different route for future generations to learn from? Yeah. Yeah, me too. Benta says, I love that book and Elder Malidoma's work. It helped reframe so many concepts and ideas for me. I come back to it often. Thank you, Benta. Yes. Yeah, I feel like we were drawn to each other, y'all. Because there's so many. We've come across trees, we've come across Plato, we've come across the healing wisdom of Africa. There's a lot of common threads. And like, not to get too woo-woo, but I feel like we were drawn to each other. So I appreciate you being here, sharing your knowledge, resources, as we collectively understand what's happening and how we can take our power back within these systems. Thank you. I bring it every day. Hello. Yes, great topic. I can relate. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, y'all, I think that was all of my notes. Let me make sure. Affirmations as well has been healing from overachieving. I do have a book of affirmations. Cocoon, affirmations for transformation. If you're in the middle of trying to go down the other side of the fork in the road, trying to reorient your life to where you're now the center, this book may be helpful for you. And it may be helpful just like to turn on an affirmations playlist if you find yourself going down the route of overachieving. Can you put something, the energy that you're absorbing is really important. So what are you absorbing about yourself? The information that can be helpful to start unlearning these patterns of behavior that you're engaging in that are not serving you. How can you affirm yourself as you heal and start to replace those thoughts of thinking that you're not worthy unless you do X, Y, and Z, unless you get this, unless somebody tells you that you're good, replacing that with stuff that validates and affirms to you that you're already worthy. And affirmations may be helpful with that too. But yes, y'all, I think that's it. I appreciate y'all being here and sharing everything that you've shared on this Tuesday. If you are watching the replay, please like the video. Comment below if you can resonate or share any resources that you have, epiphanies, understandings that you've come across as you are healing from overachieving, as we're collectively healing. Those are always helpful. But yeah, I think that's it. I appreciate y'all being here. And I'll just leave with self-sovereignty as I'm healing from overachieving, meaning the ability to choose the direction of one's own life and being the exclusive authority over one's own body and mind. That may be a helpful definition, self-sovereignty, as you're healing from overachieving. So yes, y'all. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here, as always. But yeah, until next time, y'all. I'll be going live for that on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, with Stephanie Perry and Rashida Dow, as we talk about how to reclaim your agency and step into your power. So that should be a wonderful convo. 8 p.m. Eastern on Thursday on my channel. So yeah, I'll see y'all then. Until next time, y'all. Bye. Thank you.